It's a toss behind him. It is Reese, and Reese dives in. Touchdown, Baylor.
Welcome to Sick'em 365 Radio.
Little play action. They got him, and it's Ben Sims right there, and he's into the end zone. Touchdown, Baylor.
Sick'em 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Third down at 11. Caught! Inside the 5. Touchdown! Gavin Holmes, you're a genius!
Sick'em 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Squirrel Williams takes the toss over the left side. Squirrel into the end zone. Touchdown, Baylor.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
They might go for it, and they do. Fourth down and 5. Shapin and Baylor. His throw for Baldwin has a first down across the 40 and then some. Oh, the speed! 70 yards! Sparks off his shoes for Monterey Baldwin.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Thursday afternoon in Greater Central Texas, but quite frankly, across the board, coast to coast, from California all the way to Florida and everything else in between. And we are here till 5:30 tonight. Here's what we have today, because we have a combination of our show, the afternoon show, 365 Sports, that will take from 3 to 4, but we will then start our official Game Day show, which is also on the CW channel locally. We'll start that right up at 4 o'clock today. We're going to hear from Ian Fitzsimmons of ESPN on the big games this weekend, the top 25 games. He's going to be at the Michigan-Penn State game. We discuss Alabama, Tennessee, and others as well. And then on top of that, we're going to have more, including Max Olson, theathletic.com. In an hour, we'll hear from Jed Drenning in Morgantown, West Virginia sideline reporter. Paul Catalina to my left and Craig Smoak to my right. I'm David Smoak, and here we go. It's game day. It is game day on 365 Sports, and people can give us our prediction on Baylor and West Virginia. This is kind of unique because they're playing on Thursday night in a place, Paul and Craig, where they have never won 0-5.
No, they've never won there. They've had some close games. They've had some embarrassing games there. They've had a game there that clearly cost them a shot at the CFP one year. So it's not been their favorite place to play, Morgantown, West Virginia. But this is a West Virginia team that I think right now, more so than Baylor, is very much trying to find who they are. And they have a lot of problems in the secondary. Baylor's got to find its edge again. So it'll be interesting to see, as these two teams collide, who finds what they're looking for first. But the great equalizer is what could be a great atmosphere tonight in Morgantown, although I was on 3 different West Virginia podcasts this week. Craig, I know you were on with Mountaineer Paul, and 2 of them kind of expressed a little concern that the fans weren't going to show up to this one. I don't really believe that. I think that's more just panic and concern. But if they don't, that could help Baylor out. But if they do, it's going to be the equalizer again, because it is a wild place to play.
Yeah, the next time that I hear that Baylor's never won in Morgantown will be too soon, because, man, we've heard that a lot this week in the build-up, and, rightfully so, because they haven't. But, man, I'm tired of hearing about it. I would hope the players have a pulse and are tired of hearing about it as well, because if not, I'm pissed off for them, kind of. You know what I mean? Like, hearing about it all the time. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to play for in this game for both teams. And, you know, you can talk about energy and edge and all those types of things. I mean, that's going to come into play. I've been very matter of fact on this show, on the podcast, on my articles, and a lot more are now echoing, kind of the same thing of this is Baylor looking in the mirror and deciding if they want to be a good team or not. And, yes, West Virginia is going to have some say. JT Daniels and what he does is going to, matter. And what the West Virginia defense does to rattle Blake Shapen is going to matter. But I don't know. To me, just like pretty much every game they've played this year, yes, your opponent has some say in this, but I think this is Baylor looking in the mirror and deciding if they want to, pass this gut check or not. Because if they lose this game tonight, they're 3-3, and guess what, buddy? They're not going to be favored in many of these games moving forward at 3-3, dropping to West Virginia. Because all due respect to the Mountaineers, and those out there know that I respect the Mountaineers. This is probably the dead last team in the Big 12 right now. I mean, just going off standings and kind of where we currently are. And Baylor would take that spot in so many ways if they were to lose tonight. So, I think that this is theirs for the taking. I do think that just top to bottom, I think right now they're the better team, but I don't know by how much. And I do think that there will be a nice atmosphere out there tonight. I don't believe for 1 second that West Virginia fans are so beaten down they're not going to show up for Baylor on a Thursday night at home knowing how badly, Neil Brown and his program need this win, much less the opponent does. So, yeah, I think it's going to be feisty, and I think it's going to be close. And I think Baylor wins this game, but I'm not sold on that. I think definitely this is one where West Virginia could snipe one if they, the Bears aren't careful.
We have West Virginia fans who are watching and part of today's show. Baylor fans of TCU and Oklahoma State. Paxton with the hook 'em horn sign as he puts up the emoji among many others, and we appreciate you. Last night, Louisiana beat Marshall, by the way, in another game. It was a Wednesday night game, 23-13. Also tonight, UCF and Temple play, and so we'll have a little bit of note or two on that. So we'll have an hour here. We'll hear from Ian Fitzsimmons and also Jed Drenning, and then we'll also then at 4 o'clock until 5:30 focus completely on the Baylor-West Virginia game and also the Big 12. So that's all coming up today on 365 Sports. I said this today when they asked us for the prediction, and I'll say I won't read all of it, but I've been disappointed in the demeanor, the lack of an edge that even Dave Aranda mentioned again Saturday in his first and last presser of the week, mentioned more than once. I'm not talking rah-rah stuff. I'm not saying you have to jump up and down and act excited. That's fake emotion. I just don't see a team yet grinding an opponent into sawdust and making them like it. Better do it soon, or you'll be discussing on how to figure out how to become bowl eligible rather than having a chance to repeat or play for another Big 12 championship game. Some agree, some disagree. Some say that's, oh, my God, the roof is falling. We'll figure it out after tonight.
You know what? I keep seeing this comment about, being too negative, the sky is falling, and I see it like in little bits and pieces. I don't know what exactly what's being referred to, because I don't think that saying, hey, if they don't win tonight, they're in trouble is really skies. I think that's called reality. Like, what are the comments that I'm missing that are like the sky? Is it like Dave Aranda's in over his head? Am I missing those comments?
No.
Because those would be overreactions.
Yeah.
But to say that they're in trouble if they lose tonight in Morgantown is absolutely 100% true. They would be 3-3, and the toughest part of their schedule is coming up, with all due respect to BYU and Oklahoma State and all that. They still got to – I know that Kansas doesn't quite look right this very moment as tough as maybe it did prior to the Jalen Daniels injury, so that's changed a little bit. Oklahoma doesn't look as salty as maybe that matchup did, but Texas sure does, guys. Mm-hmm. TCU sure does.
Absolutely.
K-State looks dangerous.
In
Lubbock looks hard. Like, I don't know where the wins are coming from that are guaranteed here. So I don't think for 1 second to be a little bit down. And, it'd be one thing if we're like, these guys suck and they're terrible and nobody's saying that. We're just saying, like, show a pulse. Show a pulse and play clean. And if you don't believe me, your head coach has been saying the same things since February. He's been saying the same things since February. So if it doesn't sink in tonight going to Morgantown, then I don't know when it does, honestly. I really don't.
I completely agree. That's really my whole point.
And I don't, sometimes, a moment can happen in a season, a game can happen where the momentum waves over the team and they can ride it and they know the feeling. This team hasn't had that moment yet that might galvanize it or something so they're looking for something. They're missing something clearly, and this is a team that was expected by most of the country to contend and defend their Big 12 title. But right now they're staring down the barrel of losing a game, and that being a really tough task, seeing as this is not like you said, Craig, this isn't a 3-team league right now where, like it was last year was a bit of a 3-team league. It was Baylor, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. That's what it was. Everybody else was at least a step behind them, if not way more. And it was a 3-team league. This year, it is a 6 to 7 team race. If people start beating each other up, and there are 2 teams at the top that are playing this weekend that winning will put some distance between a team with 2 losses. You don't want that.
Put it this way, there are 3 teams right now that don't have a win in Big 12 play. Granted, we're only really 3 weeks into it, and for some, it's only 2 weeks into it. But if you were to lose tonight, you would be 1-2. And guess what? You'd be sitting right there with Texas Tech, who you still have to play. You'd be sitting there. Well, no, West Virginia would pass you because they would also now be 1-2, and they would have the tiebreaker. And then there would be Iowa State and Oklahoma. Now, you'd be above Iowa State. You still got to play Oklahoma. But instead of competing near the top of the standings, you'd be competing to not be at the very bottom of the standings with a loss tonight. And yes, there's still a month and a half to go, but again, look ahead at that schedule. If you don't have a pulse and show up tonight, then it's hard to believe that you're going to turn around and go do it these next 6 weeks, because why would you suddenly flick that switch if you're not going to flick it on tonight? That's why I think tonight's a bit of a gut check for them.
And we will see as they will kick it off just after 6 o'clock. And again, we'll take you all the way up until around 5:30, give you a chance to heat up whatever you're going to eat tonight, wings or sausage or chicken wing, or pizza, whatever you have, queso dip for the game tonight, Baylor and also West Virginia. We will look into the chat room in a moment. A lot of, again, West Virginia fans are in there, and I just asked for the straight-up prediction. We'll have some of those today from you and your feedback. Earlier today, Jed Drenning, he's the sideline reporter for West Virginia, and he is on his way. His broadcast coverage started like about 11 minutes ago. So I asked him, I said, can you give us kind of a game day feel from the West Virginia perspective? And he will. And we'll have that coming up here in just a moment here on 365 Sports. Tomorrow, just to give you an idea, we're going to have reaction to whatever happens tonight from every angle, from Grayson, Grunhafer, Sam Bradshaw, Ricky Thompson, Taylor McCark, all of them will be a part of that tomorrow on our show as we look back at whatever happens today with Baylor and also West Virginia. The Big 12 weekend, of course, there are bangers in the top 25. Ian Fitzsimmons will dig into some of those today with us at the bottom of the hour. But when we come back, what is West Virginia's perspective? You want to do it now or you want to take a break?
No, let's take a break.
Take a break, come back. Jed Drenning, West Virginia's sideline reporter. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate muscle, brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Jed Redding, West Virginia sideline reporter, and someone who is our go-to when we talk about the Mountaineers. And they have Baylor tonight in Morgantown on a Thursday night in a game where both teams have had time to kind of maybe get better and heal and figure out who they are. And we'll know tonight. Jed, thanks for your time. What do you think West Virginia worked on during their off time?
Well, let's start with this, Smokey. Last time out against Texas, we got off to a less than stellar start. I mean, out of the gates, they jumped all over us. We fell behind. We got knocked off script. We would have liked to have gone into Austin and been able to kind of dictate the terms or the flow of that game, have some balance on the offensive side, keep things kind of close to the vest, and dictate the terms. That didn't happen. I mean, everybody saw what happened. They jumped all over us. They made explosive plays. We did not. They had the big lead early. They got the crowd into it. And that changed the dynamic of the entire game for the balance of the 60 minutes that we were down there. So we had to get off to a better start. I mean, that's point number one. Point number two, we're going to have to catch the football. You know, it was another situation a week and a half ago at DKR where we didn't just have drops, but we had costly drops. A lot of times those drops came on third downs or fourth downs at which we could have moved the chains, and that also impacted how the game unfolded. So those are two areas that we have to address. We have to find a way to run the football without our young stud in the lineup and C.J. Donaldson. So we're going to have Tony Mathis step up, Justin Johnson step up. And then we're going to have our hands full with a Baylor offense that's incredibly well coached by Jeff Grimes and that crew. So we're going to have to tackle well, we're going to have to play well in space, and we're going to have to find a way to get in Blake Shapen's face. I mean, when you look at the analytics, Smokey, I always think the gold of the analytics are found in the extremes, okay? Blake Shapen, per Pro Football Focus, is the highest graded passer in the Big 12 from a clean pocket. But when the pocket gets muddied up and dirtied up and he's under pressure, his completion percentage drops from 77% in a clean pocket to 42%. So we have to find a way to somehow make him uncomfortable, because if the Bears can maintain pocket integrity, it's going to be a long night for us, because Blake Shapen will carve us up.
Well, obviously, West Virginia can move the ball around, and they've thrown the ball well. And Baylor has that young secondary that has had some issues, especially on third down and giving up some big plays as well. Is that one way that West Virginia can take advantage of that?
We'd like to, but we recognize also that you're going to have to demonstrate some patience. Again, when you face a Dave Aranda, Ron Roberts defense, they do a great job, even with that youth on the back end, of keeping things bottled up, because they found a way that they don't have to commit too many resources to run fits downhill in the box. So that frees them up to put numbers up top, and it forces you to put together a string together drives against them. And JT Daniels is a guy that can have that kind of patience. And so he's going to have a great night identifying things. He's going to have to have a great night as a patient player. And he's going to kind of have to be a distributor. So we're going to have enough of a run game where we set the table in the pass game. Then once we set the table in the pass game, JT's going to have to be smart. He's going to have to be patient, because Baylor's going to bring a physicality with that front six. They're supremely difficult, even under the most ideal circumstances, to run the football against, and that's not going to change tonight. So we're going to have our work cut out for us, but we're going to have to be a patient football team and be able to put together lengthy drives that are mistake-free.
Can you try to describe Morgantown anytime, but Morgantown and a night game?
It's a pretty intense atmosphere. It really is. There's a special type of football that you see played under the lights in Morgantown, and sometimes even more so at these midweek games. I mean, we have a lot of student tickets that have been out. So the students, I think, are going to show up in strong numbers. But sometimes, even if it's not a sellout, Smokey, for these midweek games, you're oftentimes getting a lot of the more passionate folks there. All week long, they've been calling for rain. Now it looks like, hopefully, fingers crossed, that's going to clear up by game time and not be as big an issue as it was throughout the week, as people were starting to make plans. So maybe that might impact the overall turnout. But sometimes what will happen, you want to get 45, 50, 55,000 there, but it's some of the loudest 45 to 55,000. That's what I've seen historically. Like when we upset number 3 Virginia Tech back in 2003, that's often pointed to as the gold standard for these midweek games under the lights. That wasn't a sellout, but it's the loudest I've ever heard that building. So it's a very special environment, a very special atmosphere, especially under the lights, especially midweek. And we hope that's something that's working in our favor against a very good Baylor team tonight.
Baylor last year beat people up and made them like it. And the offensive line, the wide zone, what they had, of course, with Abram Smith, and then the offset with Ebner, the front seven, the defensive secondary, they just squeezed you to death. They have just not quite hit that stride. And maybe the off week allows them to do that. Dave Aranda's discussed maybe some immaturity issues with some players, and maybe just the fact that they're young. They haven't hit their stride. What do you see from them, even though they obviously have the capability to do something big?
Here's why I think Baylor offensively could flip a switch at any moment. Their true constant, their North Star, has been that offensive line with Connor Galvin across the board. Those battle-tested veterans on that offensive line, when they have 4 of their 5 starters back, they're all so experienced. There's so much continuity in that group. That's going to put them in position that when everything else falls into place, I hope that's not tonight, but when everything else falls into place, it's going to look like they just jumped into a rocket offensively. I really think so. You saw, the return of Monterey Baldwin made a huge difference for them. They kind of look like the old Baylor teams in the pass game. He missed, the better part of 3 games, and he came back against Okie State. He looked like your typical playmaking Baylor receiver on the perimeter. Ben Sims, great role player. What Reese has done as a freshman. It's difficult to just show up and be a natural when it comes to reading, that outside zone, that stretch play. I mean, that's what butters their bread, is that stretch play. And sometimes that takes you have to rep your way to that. You're going to bounce it, you're going to bang it, or you're going to bend it. You have to make very decisive reads. That's what Abram Smith was so good at. He brought that physicality as a converted linebacker that so perfectly fit that RBO offense, but also he was a decisive runner. I would argue that maybe Reese is a little more explosive, but he's still getting there in terms of making those reads. And when he does and sees daylight, he's dangerous. But the short answer, Smokey, is I think that offensive line puts them in position to this. A lot of things could get right very quickly for this Baylor offense.
Dante Stills is there, and it seems like there have been like the Stills brothers have been there like the Selman brothers of the 70s with Oklahoma, and they have haunted Baylor at times. And I know last year Baylor jumped all over West Virginia. The defense, your thoughts about how they're playing right now? What's their strength?
Well, we're far more athletic on the back end than we've demonstrated. We expected coming in that the D-line would be one of the strengths of the defense, and by and large, that's been the case. I mean, we've been pretty stout against the run with a couple exceptions. I think we were game planned by Kansas and kind of ambushed. They did a great job of showing up and giving us some looks. But I think that's been the one constant defensively. Now, on the back end, when you look at our corners, when you look at our safeties, we're more untested than we were a year ago with all those senior safeties, anchoring things down on the back end. But I think we're more athletic. It's just a matter of repping that out and getting to the point that we can identify things. There's some chemistry and some continuity in that unit, and it starts to show. Because one way or the other, whether it means you're chopping up the front and just with a 3 or 4, maybe 5-man pressure finding a way to penetrate, or if you got to throw some numbers downhill and commit some resources to pressure shaping, one way or the other, you're going to have to rattle him. You're going to have to, make him uncomfortable. Because if you don't, again, it's going to be a long night. Losing Charles Woods very early in the opener against Pitt hurt us in a lot of ways. We feel he's one of the better cover corners in the Big 12. And so, if he was back there since the outset, you can kick your coverage the other way and provide more help. But that hasn't been the case. So we kind of been scrambling to lock down those edges and provide some help from the back end. And that's kind of what's been playing out.
Jed, is this a must-win you think, for Baylor? They had big plans. Obviously, West Virginia needs a win to get a win in the conference to get on track. Is this a must-win game, or is that always too early to say?
They always feel that way. I mean, this is such a supremely competitive league this year that I have to believe that whoever wins this league, whoever's the last team standing, is probably going to have at least a couple losses. It sure looks that way. So the level of attrition that's going to play out across the board, I just see that being instrumental in the race to whatever the final two teams are to land in Jerry World. So it might be premature. I mean, they all feel that way. First of all, when you're sitting here at 2 and 3, 5 games in a season that you felt had a lot of promise, of course you want to get to 500. If you're Baylor, with the standard they've established very quickly under Dave Aranda, that holds true with them as well. But you know what? Everybody thought the sky was falling when you guys lost to Okie State last year, and it sure didn't. And I think that the same holds true this year with coming off that loss to them last week. I just hope you don't get right until after tonight.
Jed Drenning, always right there in the middle of it. He'll be in Morgantown. West Virginia sideline reporter joins us on Game Day. Baylor and West Virginia in Morgantown, and this is 360.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online, pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T is board-certified physician consultations, will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 in Old Hewitt,
Greenwood Drive in Woodway, Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Fitzsimmons, ESPN Radio, ESPN college football analyst and sideline reporter with us on 365 Sports. There are games this weekend. Bangers is what I call them, Ian. Separation-type games, more evidence, including, how about Alabama and the resurgence of Tennessee?
Well, Smokey, I just had Tennessee LSU, man, last week. And before that, I had Alabama at Arkansas when, Bryce Young goes down and that Drew Sanders sack. I'll tell you, I don't remember a weekend in October, which is always traditional, when Tennessee plays Alabama. And the great Keith Jackson once had that famous saying, man, and I'm going to butcher the impersonation, but you remember it, when it comes to Alabama, Tennessee, and on a Saturday night in October. You can always tell when the crimson tide is prevailed if the moon is a hint of crimson. And then if it was Tennessee prevailing, it was a hint of orange, depending on the amount of moonshine and whiskey you had on those boats. Tailgating is Alabama, Tennessee, and we have not had that in a long, long time. So, man, they have 3v6 coming up on Saturday, and then you have Penn State, Michigan, where I'll be with ESPN Radio. Going down the list, man, it is a separation-type Saturday 2 weeks before the first college football playoff rankings come out. You could not be more correct.
Well, let me ask you about Tennessee. You've seen them, and here we are again with them playing Alabama. Alabama last week without Bryce Young survived without him to beat A&M at the buzzer. Tennessee with Hooker at quarterback, and they're obviously playing well. How far ahead of schedule is Josh Heupel in your opinion?
A year, without a doubt. And you look at what he did at Central Florida. It was spectacular. And everyone talks about the offense. But when I talked to Jalen Hyatt, who is a very underrated wide receiver for Tennessee, he had 2 touchdown grabs against LSU. Hyatt told me our defense is better than most people give them credit for. Our special teams are better than most people give them credit for. Well, you saw the defense and the special teams unit really show up at LSU on Saturday. And Hyatt was right. But I also kind of look at it and go, all right, hold on a minute. LSU coming into that game was without Will Campbell, their starting left tackle. Garrett Dillinger, their starting right guard, gets hurt in the first quarter. He's out. Now Frazier has to go from left guard to right guard. Emory Jones, the right tackle's all banged up. They've shuffled that offensive line, Smokey, 4 different times. So I don't know if it was LSU and not having the depth and the hosses up front to be able to help that running game, which was non-existent, man. I mean, it was non-existent against that Tennessee defense. Or was it Tennessee's defense that Hyatt was talking about, very underrated? I'm going to go a bit of a combination of both. And I'll tell you this, man, right now, as you know, Smokey, I'm not afraid to put a wager down every now and then. The most tickets that have been cashed and placed on a Thursday afternoon for a college football game are on the Tennessee Volunteers. They do not air condition big buildings in the Nevada desert because they lose. I'm not on the call on this one. I'd lay the points with Bama. And I'll tell you why. I think Bryce Young's going to play. And even if he didn't, when I had, Alabama, Arkansas, when Bryce Young got hurt on that sack by Drew Sanders, I asked Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator, former Houston Texans head coach, now at Alabama, about Rhule. He goes, look, he's got the cannon to throw it outside the numbers, but he's one of the fastest guys on our team. Now, you could tell in that Arkansas game, he didn't have to think about it. He just came in and played. Last week, he had a full week to think about it, and it got to him. Curious to see if Rhule has to go, how he handles and learns from that experience of being the guy. But I have a gut feeling, and it's a big gut, as you know. I've eaten a lot of your chili, that I think Bryce Young plays on Saturday.
The one you have, Michigan, Penn State. Penn State has been kind of under the radar early on, and here they are. They're unbeaten, Michigan, after the great run they made last year, and what they seem to be doing pretty much the same thing this year. You studied the game. Your thoughts about this one?
Man, Joey Porter Jr., if your NFL team gets a corner from Penn State, they're getting a boy dog warrior. He is phenomenal. But a great person, Joey Porter's son, the longtime Pittsburgh Steeler. We all remember him. And his son is one of the best cover corners and a hitter. He's every bit of 6'2.5", about 200 pounds, Smokey, as a corner. They don't make him like that much anymore. And he runs like the wind. So Penn State's got one of the best lockdown guys out there. The problem Penn State has, it's not their running game. They're 2 freshmen toted, led by Nick Singleton. 2 true freshmen. I mean, the running game's there. It's Sean Clifford. Sean Clifford, the quarterback, has been there since 1977 as a starter. And he's either exceptional or awful. Now you couple that with Mike McDaniel, the former defensive coordinator for Michigan, now going back to the Baltimore Ravens. And Michigan lost a lot defensively. Man, that's where this game's going to be decided. It's not with J.J. McCarthy, who's now the starting quarterback at Michigan, or Blake Corum, who's one of my favorite players in college football. If your team at the next level, if you're a Cowboy fan, Texans fan, whatever, you get Blake Corum, Michigan running back, grounded young man. He is awesome. And McCarthy gets all the pub, Smokey. Corum is a dude who's got 735 yards rushing already. He's averaging nearly 7 yards a carry, and he is grounded. To me, Michigan and the running game, that's where this game is decided in an early kick. Remember, man, noon Eastern, 11 a.m. That's Big Fox. Now, obviously, we'll be there on ESPN Radio. Bubba, that, to me, is where this game is decided. When Michigan, I think, runs the football and wears out Penn State.
What are your thoughts on what you have seen just in a way from afar, but also being so heavily invested in college football with the Big 12 having, well, we knew Oklahoma State would be good, but TCU just throttles Oklahoma. Then so does Texas. Oklahoma's in a free fall.
Smokey, half the league is ranked. That's how you describe it. Half the damn league is ranked. They are deep. They are to me, any given Saturday in the Big 12, I am no longer surprised if somebody wins.
And TCU has been incredibly explosive. Kansas, Jalen Daniels went down, won't play this week most likely, but Bean obviously gave them a list despite the loss to TCU. And Texas OU are Texas and OU, but, you know, we talk about the conference moving forward.
Hey, hold on a minute. OU ain't OU, man.
No, yeah, you're right. Do you think that Texas may have kick-started something that's legitimate? Because we've seen them fool us before. Do you feel like they might maybe be a little bit maybe on the uptick?
Absolutely. And here's the reason why. Steve Sarkisian, Kyle Flood, A.J. Milwee, Bo Davis, Jeff Banks, all have been at Bama. All were under that healing hand of Nick Saban. They know what it has to look like and what a team it needs to be in order to compete in the Southeastern Conference or just in big boy college football. And they got rid of a lot of country club guys from last year that were already there that they inherited. Now they're bringing in their kind of players, and you're seeing a difference. I talked to Bijan Robinson last week, and he said it just feels different. And they are 2 field goals away from being undefeated, including a game against Bama.
No, I know.
Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Let that sink in, Smokey. These dudes can play, and they're young. Very, very young. But they got guys, man. And that attitude and knowing how a team has to be built from the inside out, that is what those 5 coaches have brought over from Alabama to Texas. And that's what you're seeing right now.
Isn't it nice to finally actually see Quinn Ewers play?
Yeah, look, man, what he was doing against Bama was amazing. And I give Hudson Card, man, full credit.
Oh, yeah.
Kept him afloat on one ankle. I mean, he was – I talked to several coaches down there in Austin, and that young man was on one leg, and he gutted it out for his team. And he didn't hit the portal, right? You know, because you're not – there's an old saying now, man, not even old anymore. It's just common. You know, if you're not starting, you're departing as a quarterback, right? You hit the portal. He didn't. He was loyal, and he needs a ton of credit for what he was able to do.
Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, USC, they've had this fast start. They're obviously better. Utah on the road, and we know Utah has slipped up, but this seems to be this not that USC needs to be legitimized, and I know that Utah needs to bounce back, but your thoughts about them being tested up in Utah?
Now, Smokey, you know me too well, dude. You know my affinity for Utah. I lived in Park City, Utah, man. I was there in 2004 when Kyle Whittingham was a defensive coordinator, and Morgan Scalley, the current D-core, was a starting safety. Right? So those guys, man, that's a kinship that I'm always going to have. They're always going to, have a special place to me, especially those 2 coaches. Last week, I didn't recognize that team. That is when Utah gets run over by UCLA. I'm going, man, what is this? I don't recognize these guys. But then I saw the number come out. USC ranked 6th in the country. Utah coming up an L against UCLA. SC has to go to the altitude on the Wasatch Front. And I live there. Bubba, it ain't easy. I mean, that altitude is legit, and it will get you. And that atmosphere at Rice-Eccles Stadium is as good as any atmosphere in college football. and Utah's favored by 3.5.
Yep, absolutely.
Why are they favored? And Vegas is begging you to take SC. Every now and then they'll just dangle a carrot out there like, here, come on, take the bait. Here you go. Come eat that cheese. It's like a Halloween candy out there. It ain't candy corn. That's a full-size candy bars, right? They're sitting there going, come on, come get it. Give me Utah, Smokey. Give me Utah. I'll lay the 3.
We've seen Georgia pushed. We've seen Alabama pushed. And we get into too many beauty pageants sometimes from the week-to-week top 25s and all this ups and downs. But Ohio State has not been tested. They've scored a ton of points. Is there an elite team right now? Do you see who's among the absolute, no doubt about it, elite?
I've had in person Georgia. I'll have them again next week, or 2 weeks from now, for the cocktail party. I just got that assignment, by the way. So I'm excited to see them again because the attitude I saw them beat the ever-loving snot out of Oregon with week 1 kind of simmered a bit. I know Jalen Carter, the best defensive lineman in college football, he's been banged up. I get that. But I would say, and having seen Alabama and Ohio State against Wisconsin in person, Smokey, there ain't no doubt in my mind that's your top 3 right now. And then there's a drop-off. And then when you're talking about the 4th best team in college football to make the college football playoff, there's probably 9 teams you can throw in there.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
Michigan, USC, UCLA, even though I think SC will get bounced this week against Utah. You can go on down the list, man. There's a lot of teams that you can throw in as a potential number 4. And that number 4 is going to have a loss. I don't know if a 2-loss team gets in, but, man, there's no doubt in my mind, having seen a Tennessee ranked 6th in the country, what I saw against Bama, Arkansas, and when I saw Ohio State, when I saw Georgia, it's a drop-off. And Tennessee's one of those teams in that, 8-9 teams we're talking about. I think it's a clear-cut 1, 2, 3. Put them in any order you want. I don't care which way you want to go between, Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State. And then there's a drop-off that next tier teams.
And there's the best part about this weekend and the upcoming games as we finish out the schedule. Yeah, thank you.
That's it.
Yep. Ian, thanks, buddy. Appreciate your time. Have fun with the Michigan and also Penn State. Ian Fitzsimmons from ESPN Radio on 3.
That's Ian Fitzsimmons with us on 365 Sports here on, of course, Game Day. We'll have the Game Day that will restart at about 4 o'clock, and we're also going to be on local television on the CW channel. Chris Williams will join us from Morgantown for tonight's game between Baylor and also West Virginia. So tonight, Temple and UCF. Let's look at the helmets. These are something Craig gave me a heads up on this. These are the helmets that UCF will be playing with, and these are the missions. These are some of the missions they've taken from, of course, near Orlando at, is it Cape Canaveral?
Yeah, in Titusville and Cape Canaveral. Yeah, it's all right there. I like that. As you know, Smokey, I'm a big space nerd. I'm big on space.
I was when I was a kid because I was there watching the first man step on the moon, and that was back in, 68, whatever it was. So I grew up when we did things that we had not done before, and I think sometimes now we just take that for granted.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait for people to go to Mars. I mean, I'm not going, but, if we can, get some people to go there.
Would you ever want to go on one of those flights, Craig, to the moon?
Yeah, sure.
I think that would be.
Would you do the Jeff Bezos Blue Origin flight where you're in space for 10 minutes?
That seems like a waste of time. I mean, I guess it would be cool ultimately. Maybe it's worth it. I don't know. But that's a lot of money for a little brief moment. Yeah.
Yeah, most of the people who have that kind of money, that's no big deal to them. But, okay, so that's the helmet. Those are the different angles of the helmet. Also, I saw this today. May have been it was maybe today. Pop up on college football coaching salaries. This is from Steve Berkowitz, who does a great job with this. The new USA Today Sports College Football Head Coaches Pay Survey, average totals for the Power 5 conferences. These are 2022 amounts not available for Miami's Mario Cristobal or USC's Lincoln Riley. But on average, and again, there are some private schools here.
I would imagine also not Dave Aranda.
That's what I was going to say, Dave Aranda. So these are at least from what they could secure. The average salary per year for head coaches in the conferences. In the SEC, it's nearly $7 million. Saban and Jimbo Fisher and obviously Kirby Smart lead the way to get to that number of nearly $9 million. The Big Ten, about $6 million. Mel Tucker has a little bit to do with that. The ACC, $4.6 million. Who's the highest paid? Dabo? Has to be Dabo Swinney in the ACC. Big 12, $4.5 million. Pac-12, $4.2 million.
Now, I just feel bad for those coaches in the Pac-12 with the high cost of living out there. They're making only $4 million a year. That's ridiculous.
Taxes, cost of living. And again, there may be a coach. They mentioned both Miami and also USC, private schools. It says those who aren't available, those are private schools, but it did not mention Dave Aranda and Baylor, so perhaps they have at least an estimate on what he is making per year to add to that number. That's nothing. There's no surprise there. I don't see a surprise in the average. That makes sense. The SEC, Big Ten, the ACC, Big 12, and Pac-12, and there they are. That's from Steve Berkowitz as well. Now, tonight there's another game. Temple, I mentioned UCF in a game where UCF and Gus Malzahn have a little momentum. We have UCF fans that watch and listen to us here on 365 Sports, and so you all can give us your thoughts about the game with Temple. Every time I think of Temple, I used to think of Bill Cosby. Then I used to also think of Don Chaney, the basketball coach. And then Matt Rhule had a nice run at Temple with a couple of double-digit years of winning there when he turned that program around before he came to Baylor.
I didn't think about it, Temple, of Matt Rhule when he was there. I never thought about Temple or Matt Rhule until I heard his name, that he was going to be the Baylor coach. I knew, when I heard Matt Rhule, the coach at Temple, I knew I'd heard that name because I'd been watching television and, they'd done a story about, man, Temple's playing really well. Here's head coach Matt Rhule. Yeah, we're playing well. I like the culture here. Boom, back to you, Kirk and Reese. And that was all it was. And then all of a sudden he was, a huge part of all of our lives.
I remember that day when his name kind of came out, and I had not heard of him either. I think maybe I'd watched him play. They had been playing pretty well, but I didn't really focus in on him until the name came up that he was the head coach at Temple.
That became my very quick acid test of a person who pretended to know more about college football than they did. Like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like, no one knew this but Matt Rhule and or Matt Rhule, Mac Rhodes, and the people around them doing this. This was not. Yeah, no. If you had asked anybody the week before, it was Sonny Dykes or Chad Morris.
Always remember the story that Joey McGuire told me, that he was in his office when Matt Rhule's name popped out that day. And he had some college coaches, of course, at Cedar Hill with all the athletes and players he had, highly recruited players. And he had somebody in his office. And when that news came out and it was kind of like being discussed in the office, one of those coaches said, that's a really good football coach. Of course, he was just fired, 3 days ago by Carolina. But he goes, that's a good coach. That's a hell of a hire. And it was an under the radar hire, and he eventually helped flip Baylor back around. Kansas, Jalen Daniels. Remember the story a couple of days ago when it was reported by Zach Boyer that he's out for the rest of the year, grade 3 shoulder separation? And then that was kind of like, oh, hold on. Matt Tate, who worked at the Lawrence World Journal, said, we have not been able to confirm this. Yesterday, Lance Leipold, Jalen did not practice today, would probably be put in a doubtful area. Again, looking at it day to day, but hasn't done anything yet. That's probably the extent I will comment at this particular time. And so a good chance that he is out. And I don't think that's a surprise after the shoulder injury against TCU.
Yeah, he's not going to play. I mean, I don't think he's going to play. So that's not surprising. And, it's good for Oklahoma. They got the new alternate uniforms they'll be sporting. They'll be at home. And, no Jalen Daniels. So nice bounce back spot for them to, right the course a little bit. Dylan Gabriel, I'd expect he'll probably be back at this point. If not, then, that'd be, I guess, not surprising because I'm not his doctor, so I don't know where he is, but I just assume that he will be back. And if not, then, yeah, I'll be very curious as how do they handle the quarterback position. Hopefully a lot better than whatever that was that they threw out there last week. I mean, that was pitiful. To go away from the Wildcat like they did as early as they did just because they ended up throwing a pick, I thought was a massive mistake, and maybe it wouldn't have mattered in the long run anyways, but you can't tell me that they really game planned an entire week and thought, let's just Davis Bevel this thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that just, if they run the Wildcat at least that whole game and just gotten stuffed, you could at least said, okay, like they tried, but going away from it immediately and then just throwing Davis Bevel out there, I don't even know how you really explain that, quite frankly, against your, in a game like that against your arch rival. I just thought that was really, like I said, pitiful. So I expect a big bounce back, especially if Gabriel can play. And if not, hopefully they've got something, cooked up that'll help move the football.
I thought the best thing they could have done was snap it straight to Willis and run the Wildcat. At least maybe you can pound the ball a little bit.
They threw a pick, and then they went away from it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they had it there, and instead of sticking with it, they threw the interception, and then you didn't see it much after that. And I felt like they should have stuck with it and just. I mean, what else are you going to do? You clearly didn't have anything else in the chamber, so other than a quarterback switch, and you didn't do that until it was well over. I'm curious to see, like I said, if Gabriel can't play, which I assume he will, what they end up doing.
Some of the chat room predictions, they are pretty much split right down the middle. 37-21 West Virginia, 37-17 West Virginia.
God, if they
30-27 West Virginia, 27-17 Baylor.
If Baylor's losing by 2 scores, 3 scores, then it should be an interesting show tomorrow, man.
Red Wine 65, Baylor 28, West Virginia 17. So what we're about to do is wrap up this first hour. We will then kick in our regular Game Day pregame show, which is also going to be seen on the CW channel, including Max Olson from theathletic.com right off the top of the show. Chris Williams from Morgantown will join us to give us a vibe from there in that place that ought to be rocking and rolling, you'd think, tonight. So when we come back, the 4 o'clock hour, and Game Day Live and on television on CW channel, this is 365 Sports.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Live from the heart of Baylor Bear Country, the most comprehensive pregame coverage. This is Game Day Live, powered by Sikkim 365 and KWTX News 10.
And here we are, as we are live inside of our studios in Waco, Texas, at 101 Elm Avenue and MLK. Chris Williams will join us from KWTX. He is in Morgantown for Baylor and West Virginia, and we will be discussing that game for the next hour and a half, leading you up to that game just after 6 o'clock. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. In the background, Jack McKenzie and Garrett Ross, and we appreciate KWTX and 365 Sports. So here we go, and tonight, must win. We discussed this a little bit yesterday. Must win, Paul? Is it too early in the season for a must win?
No, I mean, I think that absolutely it's a game that they need to win to keep pace in what they want to do. Right now, their goal is very much in front of them. They got one loss. Somebody out of TCU and Oklahoma State's going to have one loss after this weekend, and you want to keep in that one-loss column as long as you possibly can to make sure that you're back at AT&T Stadium.
No, I don't think it's wrong to call it a must-win. I think it absolutely is a must-win, and we can get into why, which we will throughout the rest of this hour.
Max Olson, theathletic.com, joins us on Thursdays at 4, and today to lead off everything, Game Day Live on KWTX and 365 Sports. Max, with Baylor's thoughts about who they would be again this year, do you feel like with what the conference has now been set up, is this a must-win?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny that when I was covering TCU Kansas last weekend, obviously TCU won a really close game there, and I asked Tony Dykes after the game, are you ready to play 7 more of these? Because that's just kind of what this Big 12 race feels like, right? Like they all feel like must wins every week now the rest of the way. I think it's going to be a really stressful stretch for like kind of everybody the rest of the way here. So I definitely get why you guys kind of look at this game this way for Baylor. And obviously like nobody really likes going out to play in Morgantown. Like this does feel like kind of a trap the way that it kind of sets up on the schedule, even though you had a little bit of time off before it. I think in terms of the Big 12 race, certainly there's not going to be a 12-0 team in the Big 12 this year, I don't think. Now, the question is how many games can you lose in conference play and still make it to Arlington? I think that's the one that's a little bit hard, and, I think probably is going to come down to some tiebreakers. But, this is in terms of the way the conference is stacking up right now, I think if you're Baylor, you've got to win this game.
Max, the way the conference stacks up this weekend is a couple pretty interesting games outside of this one tonight in Morgantown, TCU and Oklahoma State this weekend. I think my biggest question about TCU is can you carry that momentum off that huge win last week? And Oklahoma State, can you survive what was a scare last week and going into this? I don't really know who I think is better going into this. I really don't know who to pick.
I know you look at Texas Tech with Baron Morton last week, and Kansas with Jason Bean in the second half. Like, some of these teams do have backup quarterbacks and can still surprise even when it's not their best week. So yeah, TCU. I was really impressed by the way they stepped up in the second half last week in a low scoring first half, and then Jason Bean comes in after the Jalen Daniels injury and is able to make some plays. And I thought Max Duggan really got going, and you love to see. Obviously, Temple's Quentin Johnson get going in that game and get 17 targets and 14 catches and really kind of flex what he could do. I thought he looked like a first rounder in that game. And I think that offense for TCU has a chance to do some damage against Oklahoma State. And, certainly if the Pokes win this game, and I think they probably will, we've got to talk about them very seriously as one of the, not just the Big 12 front runner, but maybe one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, I don't know, Max, if you've heard from the Oklahoma State fans like we have. They're feeling a little bit disrespected at this point. And I've kind of been saying, like, let's just, let's wait. But if they do win this weekend, that's going to tip it all over for them.
Yeah, I mean, at some point I need to get in my car and drive to Stillwater and write about the Pokes here. I've probably been sleeping like everybody else here. Yeah, I think it's, and part of that is just, they've had some good tests so far in Big 12 play. And, this is a huge one.
Max, Oklahoma, I don't know. How did you kind of wrap your head around that effort or lack thereof, or whatever you want to call it, last week against Texas, that historic beatdown? Back at home, alternate uniforms, perhaps no Jalen Daniels for Kansas. Obviously, a very interesting game with a lot of dynamics in play here. What do you think about the Jayhawks at the Sooners?
Yeah, like I said, on both sides of that one, both teams probably feel like, man, this is a must-win for us this week, too. If you're Kansas, maybe this is that chance to get that sixth win. And you look at the rest of the Big 12 schedule, and for Oklahoma, man, if you lose to Kansas at home this week, how much darker does it get there? Honestly, guys, I mean, as good as Kansas is, I think that obviously, like, the offensive piece last week, without Dylan Gabriel, really didn't have a chance. I thought some of the Wildcat stuff worked, and why they got away from it, I'm not sure. But defensively, it's really hard to believe, and especially when you're coming off the TCU game, right? Like, you'd think you'd find some stuff to improve. You think you'd clean it up a little bit and play with, you kind of get more confident play and kind of have some better answers for Texas. And I mean, the Horns could have just like TCU, the Horns probably could have gone and scored 70 if they wanted to. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I think this is an Oklahoma team that we're at midseason here, and it's hard to believe this, but they look really worn out and really beat up. And I don't know if that's Brent Venables is doing too much in practice during the week, or is just not maybe he needs to kind of calibrate his approach to this. Maybe he thinks that that's the way to go in the long term of building this program. But these Oklahoma teams just have not looked ready to play these past few weeks. And it really is baffling. And as you look at the rest of the schedule here, like, when does it get any easier for them?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's almost like the football season this year is like what Big 12 men's basketball schedule's been like. If you burp or blink, and the next thing you know, you might be on a 3 to 5 game losing streak and not be able to get out of it. You did the story in the feature.
Losing by 49 is a little more than a burp, though, isn't it?
Yeah. No, that's
throwing up everywhere. It's food poisoning.
That is absolutely food poisoning. Max, you did the feature on Jalen Daniels, one of the great parts of this early season, and also what Kansas is doing. And then he goes down, and there's thoughts about whether he'll be back again or not. Your thoughts about him and what he's meant, at least, to give that program the start that they had.
Yeah, I mean, from talking to people there, I think they're just not ready to make the determination yet on whether this is going to be the rest of the season or if they can get him back. We'll see kind of that what that status is. I think he's a little worse than doubtful this week in terms of playing Oklahoma. But the severity of the shoulder injury, just not sure on that quite yet, and how long he's going to be out. And yeah, you hate to see it. I thought that was a pretty great moment for Kansas football last weekend to have College Game Day, to have a big time matchup. I was there, and the crowd was packed, and it was really loud. You kind of felt the energy there. It's just really cool to see a fan base that, like, if you just give them a couple of wins, they show up and they're into it. And so to lose Daniels is tough. Certainly Jason Bean got a lot of experience last season as the starter for much of the year, and I think that Kansas offensively will adjust around him, and he can do some stuff in the run game. You saw he threw some dimes in that second half against TCU. He can take some deep shots. Just a little bit slower decision maker than Jalen Daniels, and interested to see how they adjust this week. And it's a bummer for Daniels, obviously, and for this program. But, I think Lance Leipold and his staff, I don't doubt they're moving forward feeling like they can still be pretty productive on offense with Jason Bean.
Max, of the games that will definitely see an undefeated team go away, like Michigan and Penn State, Alabama, Tennessee, those games, which of the ones intrigues you the most? I guess we talked about TCU and Oklahoma State already.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, the Bryce Young status on the Alabama game is going to be fascinating. I mean, I think that, if he's healthy, if he's out there, then the path to victory for Tennessee is trying to survive a shootout, and I think if Bryce Young's in that game, that's what we're going to get from Young versus Hendon Hooker. I think that that stadium is going to be just bonkers in Knoxville on Saturday. I think that crowd and just that tension and all that, it's going to be quite a spectacle. And I think that, Tennessee rolls into this game with a ton of confidence just on what they've done so far. I think Alabama, when you watch them line up against Texas and against Texas A&M, they're not quite looking like that team that's just dominant this year. And so I think that there's an opportunity here for Tennessee, but if Young's playing, it's going to take a ton of points.
Max, I want to circle back to West Virginia. Obviously, the game with Baylor tonight. We talked a ton about Baylor and kind of where they are, still sort of, finding the proper mix between veterans and fresh faces, and it's been kind of difficult for Dave Aranda and company. We know that things have been kind of rocky at times as well for Neil Brown and the Mountaineers. JT Daniels has given them a shot in the arm, but what have been your impressions watching them this season, and how much of a must-win do you think tonight is for that program?
Now, I assume C.J. Donaldson's not expected to play today, right?
Yeah.
Not playing. Okay, that's a factor for sure. I think offensively, West Virginia is a little bit more confident in what they're doing under Graham Harrell. I think JT Daniels has potential. I mean, I think he certainly has at times been a pretty good playmaker this year, and I don't think he's been the problem for West Virginia. And Bryce Ford Wheaton is one of the more talented playmakers, I think, in the conference. Yeah, if you had Donaldson, you'd feel a lot better about that. I think the hard thing to kind of get a read on here is just the defense for West Virginia. And, certainly Texas bullied them around a little bit. Kansas put up a lot of points and yards on them. Can they obviously we know what Baylor is bringing offensively. So I think West Virginia, I think they can hang up front. I think they have a tough front, and I think they can handle it. I think the problem for them is just defensively. Obviously we know what Baylor throws at you. Can they be really disciplined with their tackling and their eyes and all of that against what Jeff Grimes wants to do? I think that's the challenge for West Virginia tonight. And that's where they've got to make a lot of improvement. But, I mean, I like Baylor in this game, but I do think it'll be close.
And yet, your favorite quarterback, Adrian Martinez, continues to do what he does. It was an ugly win. But no win is ugly. But what K-State was able to do against Iowa State, who's very, very good against the run.
Hey, you guys saw it all year last year, right? The key to winning the Big 12 is figuring out how to win close games. And sometimes they're not very sexy, but you just have to figure out a way to win enough close games to get to Arlington and then win another close game, right? And so that's the thing that K-State's doing right now. I mean, that's, they came up short, obviously, against Tulane in a tight one there, but, since then, I think you're seeing them, they've been playing Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and playing Iowa State. Yeah, maybe those are not, the top 5 teams in the conference right now by any means, but they're figuring out a way to be just good enough to win by at least one. And so I think that continued improvement. And obviously we know that's just not something that Adrian Martinez had a lot of history of at Nebraska. So I think the way they started conference play, pretty impressive. They're finding different ways to win. And I think they're a handful each week.
Maxwell, we're kind of bouncing around here from Big 12 to non. Let's close with a non-Big 12 question, and there's a lot of games to choose from with a lot of interesting storylines, but how intrigued are you by USC and Utah?
Yeah, this is a big week for USC to prove a lot. I think, Utah got exposed a little bit against UCLA, and I think UCLA is probably, might be the best team in the conference this year. I mean, they're really good. I think Chip Kelly's really built something there. And so when USC and UCLA play, I think that's the one that really makes a big statement about where they're at. But so I think SC can survive this game, but Utah, is going to be tough for them. I think this is a week where you find out a lot about SC and just can they continue this hot start they're on? They have a huge edge in things like turnover margin. Can you maintain that? Can you continue to do that on defense? And just the continued growth of that offense around Caleb Williams. I think it's a great game and one that if you're not quite sure whether SC belongs kind of in that top 5 conversation, this is the game you've been waiting to see.
Max, I don't know this, and that's why I'm asking. Have you ever covered a game in Morgantown?
Weirdly, that's an interesting question. So I've been up there a bunch for, spring and summer and kind of preseason coverage and stuff like that. But West Virginia is the only one, now that I've been to Kansas, I think West Virginia is the only one I've not seen a game at.
I was curious. We're about to have Chris Williams going to join us live from Morgantown. Obviously, it's an hour and a half before game, or hour 45 before game time. And I was curious if you'd experienced what that is. I think Morgantown anytime is a tough place to play, even if Kansas won early or whatever. But at nighttime, it does seem to be extra special. And I was curious if
have you guys done that trip up to driving up from Pittsburgh there before?
No, I have not. No, I have not. No. So we'll figure. It's hard. And Craig said earlier, he's tired of this stat. Baylor has never won. They're 0-5. It's not like it's been 80 years, but 0-5. They had to hear that for a long, long time about Oklahoma State, where they had not won there in forever, and they finally were able to break through, and they did. But it will be interesting to see how they react under some pressure because they need a win, as do the Mountaineers.
I don't think it'll be as high scoring as 2012. That's my prediction for tonight.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, I think you're right. Haven't seen both these teams in action. Yeah.
Geno Smith, was it? Oh my God, that was an unbelievable shootout with Nick Florence throwing forever.
Nick Florence.
Yep. Terrence Williams catching a ton, right?
Yeah.
In that game, 70-63. In fact, the guy that did the game for West Virginia, Tony Caridi, is going to join us here momentarily. Max, thank you very much for jumping on to be our leadoff hitter for Game Day Live today.
Thanks, guys.
That's Max Olson, theathletic.com. Now, we will, a couple of different times in the next hour or so, check in with Chris Williams of KWTX. He's live in Morgantown. We'll do that next. This is 365 Sports and KWTX.
Game Day Live 10 is sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Advanced Pain Care, and Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
When storms damage your roof, there's only one place to call, and it's Montgomery Construction and Roofing. MCR offers detailed bids for affordable quality roof repair and replacement. Schedule your free inspection and make sure your damage is repaired right the first time. Our claim specialist can help walk you through filing an insurance claim for wind and hail, too.
Say goodbye to damaged roofs and yes to Montgomery Construction and Roofing. We roof Texas, and we are here to serve you.
I'm Shannon Smith, and I'm the Executive Director at REACH Therapeutic Riding Center. REACH is a premier accredited center that specializes in equine-assisted activities for children and adults with disabilities, as well as our Horses for Warriors program that provides services for any United States military, veteran, or service member entirely free of charge. This year, our goal is to raise $30,000 to purchase our own horse trailer so we can continue to change lives one ride at a time.
I had bad back pain for more than 15 years and had multiple surgeries that didn't work. Then when I got the spinal cord stimulator, I felt like a new man. Thanks to the people at Advanced Pain Care, I can finally enjoy quality time with my family.
This reversible procedure works by blocking pain signals from the lower back and legs from reaching the brain. We've helped thousands of patients get relief, including myself. From Waco to Bastrop, there's a location near you. Advanced Pain Care, the pain stops here.
We are back for Game Day Live on KWTX, and also this is 365 Sports at 101 Elm Avenue, just off of MLK, and not far, just away from McLean Stadium. But that's not where Baylor is. They're playing in Morgantown, and we will be joined and are joined by Chris Williams in Morgantown for the game tonight. Chris, thanks for your time, and obviously a lot of things you hear about Morgantown, the atmosphere, the environment, all of that. Have you had any experience with that so far today?
Yeah, well, Smokey, first of all, I heard you talking about that drive from Pittsburgh into Morgantown. It is as beautiful as people say. We lucked out and hit it right at sunset, too, so that was great. But, yeah, there's tailgaters out there, and it is the most foreign environment I think Baylor will play in this year. It's a whole different kind of fans. It's a whole different atmosphere. The whole town and community just looks entirely different, built into the hill. So I get why this is such a tough place to play. Different time zone. It's a chilly weather game. I mean, there are just so many factors that feel so different from what the Bears are used to.
So how chilly is it, and how much is the altitude at least affecting you?
I haven't noticed the altitude much. I think they'll probably be fine on that front. And it's not cold, but there's definitely a chill. You definitely need a jacket out here, and it's only going to get colder. And actually, I'm going to show, because I'm the weather guy now. If you see, there's the big storm clouds. It's not supposed to rain, but it's definitely daunting. And so weather could play a factor. I don't think it'll be a big issue, but it could play a factor.
Chris, we've been kicking this around. Baylor now at 3-2. West Virginia, looking to even up their record as well. Knowing what's coming ahead of Baylor on the schedule, does this feel like a must-win in any way to you?
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be in the hunt for a Big 12 title, it's absolutely a must-win game. And just in general, when you have young guys like this, if they can prove that they can use the bye week, bounce back from a tough loss against a really, really good Oklahoma State team, and get the win tonight, then that is going to be a springboard for this team. And I do definitely think that it is important for them to get this win. I think that a win will affect them more positively than a loss would affect them negatively, if that makes sense. Just the momentum from getting a win here on the road.
What do you expect tonight from JT Daniels?
I mean, he's a talented quarterback. I actually got to meet JT Daniels a few years ago when I was in college in Southern California. I met him at a football banquet. He left high school a year early to go to USC, a top-tier recruit. He has had some injury trouble. That's kind of why he left Georgia and made his way up here. But, I mean, he has a strong arm. He can make any throw on the field. I think he'll probably be a backup in the NFL for a long time. The problem is that he doesn't have the receiving core that's helping him out here. And that's been the big complaint from all these fans. They're saying, for so many years we've complained that we don't have a quarterback. Now we have a great quarterback, and the guys are just dropping passes.
Chris, how was the Primanti brothers in Pittsburgh?
It was something else. I don't even know how you eat that big old sandwich. It was good, though. They throw everything on it. I don't know if you know the story behind that. Our Megan Boyd, who is from the Pittsburgh area, was saying that some of the steel workers, some of the drivers way back in the day in Pittsburgh thought that it was too much to have a sandwich and to have to carry their fries and everything while they're doing their drive. So they said, throw the coleslaw, throw the fries right there on the sandwich. A lot of meat, too. It was delicious. It was different, but I definitely recommend it.
Chris Williams, KWTX. He'll join us again a little bit later on. You have been able to hang around with some of the West Virginia fans. That's dangerous, but it gets dangerous even more as the sun starts to set. But what are their thoughts about head coach Neil Brown?
Well, first of all, Smokey, we tried interviewing a few West Virginia fans before the game, and I'm not sure how much that we can even use. I mean, they were fine with throwing around all sorts of foul language and had no regard for being on TV. So that gave a little glimpse of what we're looking at. But they're a little bit torn on Neil Brown. It does seem like a lot of them are looking at this game as kind of the make or break, but they don't all want him to go. There's a lot of the fans who have been saying, look, we understand the Big 12 is a tough league. So if they hang tough and can't beat a great Baylor team, they aren't ready to give up on Neil Brown just yet, but it is definitely the talk of the town. If you walk through that parking lot with all the tailgates, you're going to hear Neil Brown, left and right. It's every conversation before this game.
Hey, man, thanks a lot, Chris. Great to have you wherever Baylor is playing, either at McLean Stadium and, of course, on the road as well. You've done a great job, and we'll come back to you in a little bit to get one final thought or three, okay? Chris Williams, KWTX in Morgantown, West Virginia for Baylor and the Mountaineers.
By the way, that's a sharp-looking jacket, and I'm happy to see Chris wearing it. And I will explain that to you guys off the air.
Okay. We will,
wasn't even paying attention to what he was wearing, so, yeah, you'll have to fill me in on that.
Elevation, by the way, I didn't know. Provo, I knew was high, 4,551 feet. Norman's 1,171. Austin and Waco are less than 500. Morgantown's 1,161 feet. Lubbock is 3,220 feet elevation. So, and I don't know about maybe a couple other places in the conference as far as elevation. And that is just a note from playing in Provo, which is about 1,300 feet higher than it is. No, it's about 3,000 feet higher than it is in Morgantown. We're not done. When we come back, we're going to hear from Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia. Hey, Blake Blackmar, former Baylor offensive lineman, he has his recipe, his tailgate recipe. It's as much for when they have their home game next Saturday against Kansas for a big or late kind of a breakfast brunch type idea. That's coming up around the corner, and this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr and his team are standing by the Bears in all sports this coming season, but Richard Carr's passion for football started many years ago when he was a trainer for the football team. In addition to his alma mater, Richard Carr also loves selling quality cars and trucks to his Central Texas neighbors. Whether you want the unbeatable GMC Sierra truck loaded with luxury and strong and tough for the workday, or the performance and ride of a Cadillac or Buick SUV, Richard Carr has an amazing lineup of vehicles for you. Stop by for a test drive, contact them online, or call and say Sick'em and you're immediately a VIP at Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Find them at Highway 6 at the Imperial exit or at richardcarr.com.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Game Day Live on Sick'em 365 Radio is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Three Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
Game Day Live on 365 Sports and also on television on KWTX. Garrett Ross runs the mothership. Paul Catalina to my left, Craig Smoak to my right, and I'm David Smoak, and we appreciate you as we lead you up to Baylor and West Virginia. Here's a graphic on a very short series between these two. The series history, West Virginia leads it all time, 6-4, and the big advantage has been where they are tonight in Morgantown. They're 5-0 against Baylor. Baylor in Waco is 4-1. The last time they met, 2021, last year, Baylor beat West Virginia up. I think at one point that game was like 21-0, and they eventually they wiped out West Virginia. Last time they met in Morgantown, 27-21, double overtime game in 2020, the COVID year.
Well, and this series clearly here has not been kind to the road team.
No.
I mean, so the road team's 1-9 in this whole thing. So, I mean, that's one thing that, you know, we talk about. But again, you know, until Baylor shakes it off, then it'll be a thing. But yeah, I'm tired of it, like Craig is. You know, it's a thing until it's not.
Yeah, it's a thing until it's not. So, I mean, be nice to, you know, go out there tonight and go ahead and erase that. But, that's why we're here. We're here to talk about what could happen, and certainly Baylor wins not a given. Given the way that they've played so far, I think it'll be a feisty little contest, and I think the Mountaineers will come out ready to play. I just hope that Baylor, for their sake, is coming out ready to play as well, because I really don't know with this team. I mean, I really don't know what to expect as far as a start goes, or the middle eight. Where they've been horrendous, or any other area that's been good, bad, or otherwise for them. I don't know what to really expect. I think they'll play solid defense, and that's really all I know. I mean, and they'll try to run the ball, but to what extent they're capable of doing so, I don't know that. But yeah, I suspect they'll play good defense, and then beyond that, those will be the things that decide this football game.
We do a show every afternoon on 365 Sports from 3 to 6, and so on today, we were on for an hour before the game day with Baylor, West Virginia began. And we had this discussion about truth serum, about reality, about who Baylor is and who they haven't been. And last year, they beat people up. They grinded most of them into the dirt and made them like it. With a lot of close wins, but they eventually wore most people down with what they could do in the running game. We have seen bits and pieces of it, but it's been more of a spark than it has been power and thumping on people that wears them down in the second half. Defensively last year, they were just amazing. And by the end of the year, maybe as good as any defense in the country. They forced turnovers. They put pressure on the quarterback. And we have not seen that consistently either. That's why I don't know. Craig says he doesn't know, and you don't know either.
Yeah, this is a defense this year that has made plays in the games that they've won when they've had to, but they have not necessarily stomped another team into the ground. That's not how they are, and I have a feeling most of their wins are going to go kind of like the Iowa State game until proven otherwise, where they're going to win games and they're good enough to win games, but it's going to look like the Iowa State game, and it's not going to look like the West Virginia game from a year ago, the BYU game from a year ago, or the second half of the Texas game from a year ago, where it's absolutely just a physical the Oklahoma game, just a physical stomping beatdown of those teams. They just don't seem to have that vibe yet. Not to say that they couldn't get it, but they need it back if they want to be who their real identity is and who they're trying to be, which is that team.
And they haven't done that. And they did a little bit of that against Iowa State, and then at the end they had to kind of hang on. But it was a huge win. Can they put together what we saw against Iowa State tonight in Morgantown? And that remains to be seen. Richard Reese, Squirrel Williams, Craig, tonight, who do you think gets the most carries?
I think any contest where it's Squirrel or somebody who's a starter, the starter's getting more carries, because Squirrel, the last 2 weeks, I mean, he's barely played. I mean, he's, tonight would be a great time to spring him if you're going to do it. But that would be the unpredictable part of this offense, that we just have no way of really knowing if they're going to do that, because I said it all offseason. There's people that were talking about Squirrel Williams going to be like basically, an All-American, at the minimum, all Big 12, right? Like y'all saw that. There's a lot of hype for Squirrel Williams. And the whole time I'm sitting there going, yeah, he's a great player. Yeah, he's fast. Yeah, he's fun and electric. But he's also hardly ever available. And then we get into this season and, we get to see a little bit of him early on, and then he kind of disappears again. It's like, where's Squirrel Williams? Oh, he's being taken care of because they're protecting him, and also because I guess he's, a little bit banged up and whatnot. And, you get into a game a couple weeks ago against Oklahoma State, and he had, 4 carries? Isn't that what he ended? Like something like 4 carries on the night? So, yeah, give me Richard Reese all night long as far as that bet goes. And if that's not the case and Squirrel Williams ends up with 15 to 20 carries, which I think he would have to lead this team, then maybe that's what they've been saving him for. Although that doesn't make sense, because
why not use him when you need him?
Because why would you lose games to save a guy for the West Virginia game? All due respect, you wouldn't do that. So I don't know where he is as far as his durability and his health and their confidence in him. But that was a thing that when you start talking about this team going into this season and you're banking on their success coming from this guy who has not proven in any way, shape, or form that he's going to be fully there for you and I'm not trying to knock him, but you know what I'm saying here.
He's been through it.
He's been through it.
You're telling the truth.
Yeah, and so for us to kind of like hinge our bets on this guy who may or may not play all that much, that's shaky ground. So it's been great to see Richard Reese emerge. He's still, though, a true freshman, and I think they're going to have to count on him a lot tonight. But if we could see a little bit more Squirrel, that would be obviously great news.
Also in the Big 12 this weekend, Kansas plays in Norman. No Jalen Daniels. Oklahoma coming off, of course, the really eye-opening 0-3 start in the beatdown against Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Iowa State plays in Austin, UT with that 49-0 blitzkrieg of the Sooners at home against another team in the Big 12 that's 0-3 after a very gut-wrenching loss against Kansas State last week. And then Oklahoma State, TCU, that's the highlight game. Tonight's the only game, so it's a highlight game tonight with Baylor and West Virginia. Two unbeaten teams, 2:30 on ABC TV on Saturday afternoon, Oklahoma State and also TCU. Baylor has run the ball at times, but how much of a difference does it make that they haven't run the ball when they beat people up, when they actually lean on people, converts 3rd and 3s, or have always 3rd and 2 rather than 3rd down and 6 or 7, having to throw the football or do something a little bit different?
Yeah, they miss Abram Smith a lot. They miss that
He's not
ability
coming back.
to. Yeah, I mean they can't just say, hey, I know that you're on a practice squad in the NFL right now. You want to come back here and have 11 more years of eligibility. That's just not going to happen. So they need to find somebody who can do those things. And I think that the identity of Abram Smith it helps the offensive line when the running back, when you have an okay block, but not the best one, if you kind of miss your guy, that the running back can just pop and go on through. Richard Reese is not that guy. I mean, he's a speed back. He's good between the tackles. I mean, he makes those cuts, but he's not someone who's going to lower the shoulder and knock over a defensive end. That's what Abram Smith could do. That's what they're hoping Tay McWilliams could do, but we have not seen him since the first week in any kind of full role, and he's been out since the BYU game, and we don't really know when he's coming back, so they're missing that, and it's not like you can just create it off of the roster.
Yeah, and for a guy that was a banger, Craig, he's out because he got hit, has concussion protocol, took the hit against Brigham Young and has not been able to return, and you wonder whenever it is, will he be the same power back, or is that going to be something he deals with for the rest of the year?
I mean, I don't know how much of a power back he was, guys. I mean, we didn't even see. So, he's big, but, I mean, as far as being a power back, I mean, that's what you expect him to be, but we never even really got to see that. That's how little we saw Tay McWilliams. I think there were carries here and there where you got the glimpse into what he could potentially be. But, I mean, we never even really started scratching the surface with him before BYU knocked him out. I mean, we haven't seen him in a month. They've played Texas State, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State since we've seen Tay McWilliams. And that was early in the BYU game. So he's missed nearly 4 games and will have missed nearly 5 games by the end of the night. So, for a guy who's supposed to be physical, he's the one that got banged up in a major way. Yeah. And, they don't have anything to really supplant that. I mean, Quaylon Jones to a lesser extent, I suppose, but, I mean, he's not a guy that's going to get a bunch of carries either. So, part of the reason why they haven't been able to lean on teams is not just because of missing pieces, but in what circumstances are they going to, really? Yeah. I mean, you look at the Albany game. Okay, we know what that was. That was, let's pay somebody a few $100,000 to beat them up, and that's what that was. BYU, they certainly, couldn't ever lean on the Cougars. If anything, BYU was the one that kind of was the more physical team in some ways in that game. Texas State, that was another sign me up, beat you up for $100,000 and move along. And, then the other, Iowa State, they didn't just press against the Cyclones and just force, their will in the run game. Oklahoma State certainly didn't do that there. So, tonight would be a good night to do it, but I just don't see any evidence or ammunition to believe that they've really got that in their holster right now. So if you want to spring it as a surprise, tonight would be a great night to do it, like I said, but sure don't have the evidence to believe that they've really got that, loaded in the chamber right now.
Last year had 180-plus yards on 17 carries. So when he got the ball, he obviously did something with it. And yet again, we just haven't seen much of him since early on against Brigham Young. When we come back...
He had a couple of those early touchdowns, if you'll remember, and he didn't play much in the second half of the year.
When we come back, he's the voice of West Virginia, Tony Caridi, and Blake Blackmar on what he calls the breakfast fatty. And you will want to watch it and write it down. This is 365 Sports, Game Day Live on KWTX, leading up to Baylor and West Virginia.
Central Texas Plumbing Solutions is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. We want to wish the Big 12 champion Bears great success this season. Sick 'em Bears.
I don't know what any of this stuff is.
Is the Jeep not starting?
Token, can you please come help?
Y'all call for a tow?
Yes.
Y'all call for a tow?
Yes.
Call Toking 24 hours a day for all your emergency roadside needs. Central Texas Plumbing Solutions is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. We want to wish the Big 12 champion Bears great success this season. Sick 'em Bears. The KWTX Skycam Network, sponsored by Ray Broker Air Conditioning.
We are now joined by Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia Athletics on 365 Sports. Tony, thank you very much for your time. And Thursday night game in Morgantown, obviously Baylor's never won there before, and both teams really, probably needed to work on some things. What do you think that Neil Brown and company needed to work on the most during the off week?
Getting in the right position. Really struggled in that regard against Texas on the defensive end. Just had a bunch of opportunities that, from an alignment issue, and that's not the first time that's happened. That also happened a good bit against Kansas. And I think it speaks to the fact that, West Virginia really had an overhaul at the two corners and the safety spots this offseason. And as a result of that, just trying to get this thing synced up. And as a result of that, really trying to find some form of consistency. So I would answer your question by saying it's probably, let's just get lined up first and stop suffering paralysis analysis. Easier said than done, but I think that would be the number one objective.
Tony, Baylor's never won in Morgantown. It's been a house of horrors for them. What, from your perspective, someone who's been there forever, what is it about that crowd? Like in Oklahoma State, it's the paddles on the side. What is it about that crowd that makes it so difficult for teams to win there, even when the visiting team should be favored and maybe even sometimes walk away with a game?
There's a mysterious mountain air that emanates from the hills at nighttime. Little do people know, but it removes their oxygen. And before the fourth quarter comes, they're totally breathless, and they've got no answer. Oh, I don't know. I think it's a combination of things over the years, and this isn't specific to, Baylor. And I know we've had some unbelievable games in the last decade, but I think that Mountaineer crowds are normally very energized to begin with. And then when you turn the lights on, I think that ramps up. So I think that's been part of it. And then, through the years, you got to have good players. And, a lot of those big time wins have come as a result of big time players, playing at a very high level. And so I think that's been the key. But, this particular contest, guys, this is an extremely important game for West Virginia, as we've seen each week. And you guys were just kind of alluding to it, week in and week out. This league is as balanced as it's been since I can remember, and this is our 11th season. There really isn't a bad team at the bottom, and the elite teams have dropped down. And so as a result of that, you get this great conference race. And so, if you're West Virginia, you're sitting here at 2-3 and 0-2 in the league, and you look that there's no such thing as an easy Saturday coming up. And so the importance of this game, really is peaked up. So we'll see how it all unfolds.
Tony, the Neil Brown, obviously they need a win. The Pitt was a tough loss, and then Kansas at the time, you're like, oh my God. How has he handled the first? I know you do a show with him. How has he handled the first few games, half of the first season?
He's okay. He's a realist. He gets it. And, he knows what the bottom line is, that you have to win football games. And he took over a West Virginia program 4 seasons ago that was, depleted at an extremely high level of depletion, and had to build the thing. And he built the offensive line now to where it's a capable, solid offensive line, and the same with the defensive unit. I think, a couple of things have set him back. And, we all had to deal with the COVID, but I think COVID, slowed him down in trying to get the buy-in and the culture within the program. And then secondly, we have been hit extremely hard with the transfer portal. And the reason that we've got a new back half of a defense is because, we've got guys that were good that left. And so as a result of that, not where you would want to be and not where you expected to be at this point. So he's really good. He's a realist. He knows what it takes. He knows what you have to do. And at this point, he's handled it well. Obviously, extremely disappointed that he hasn't gotten some bounces. You guys alluded to the Pitt game. It was there for the taking. You lose to Kansas in overtime. So they're closer than they are farther away, although the Texas performance was disappointing.
Tony, what matchup do you like the best for West Virginia entering this game? Which one are you a little bit more cautious about?
Oh, what's the matchup that I like? The fact that, West Virginia's played really well at home with Neil Brown. I just think being home here, I think, gives you some good mojo. I think anytime you've got a quarterback that's got the capability and the talent of JT Daniels, I think that gives you a chance. On the other side of it, what concerns you from the Baylor perspective is the way that they played West Virginia last year. They just big-boyed West Virginia last year. It was one of the Mountaineers' poorest performances. You guys went into max protection, which allowed Bohannon to have all kinds of time to throw big explosive chunk plays, and they hit. And so, to me, that's the concern. If Baylor can successfully power and run the football and then max protect to set up chunk plays, that's going to be the same concern that it was a year ago.
Thank you, Tony, as always, buddy. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the broadcast Thursday night. Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia Athletics, with us on 365 Sports.
Game Day Live on News 10 is sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Advanced Pain Care, and Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
I'm Shannon Smith, and I'm the Executive Director at REACH Therapeutic Riding Center. REACH is a premier accredited center that specializes in equine-assisted activities for children and adults with disabilities, as well as our Horses for Warriors program that provides services for any United States military, veteran, or service member entirely free of charge. This year, our goal is to raise $30,000 to purchase our own horse trailer so we can continue to change lives one ride at a time.
At Dr. Smiley, you are always our top priority. Dr. Lee, Dr. Lim, and the friendly staff are committed to delivering exceptional and professional care in general, family, cosmetic, and emergency dental services. Get $24.99 implant, abutment, crown, 3D CT scan, and consultation. Dr. Smiley accepts Medicaid and most dental insurance. Call Dr. Smiley today at 254-732-2606 and book your appointment today.
We all are experiencing how the current crisis is affecting our communication. Conducting virtual meetings or classes from the workplace or your home while maintaining security, efficiency, and effective communication throughout your organization is the new normal. Asbel Electronics can set up your business, school, or house of worship with hardware kits to enhance your virtual meeting experience and provide secure market-leading Cisco WebEx meeting or Teams for your face-to-face communication. Call Asbel Electronics at 254-824-0237.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Three Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
We are back on Game Day Live on KWTX and also 365 Sports. We'll get to a couple of nuggets from the trip to New York City by the Big 12 and Commissioner Yormark, Scott Drew, Bob Huggins, and a couple of other people as well. We will hear from Dave Aranda in the next segment, some notes about what he had to say about this week with West Virginia, what they did inside also that off week as well. But the Big 12 was in New York City. Brett Yormark has made it clear that they wanted to start talking early. There's that, that window where you have to still wait, which is in somewhere early 2024 with Fox and ESPN. But he did say they've had meaningful conversations with Fox and ESPN about a new TV deal. I've had meaningful conversations with ESPN and with Fox over the last 30 days. He said this yesterday in Manhattan about, do we accelerate that? Do we think about doing something now? These conversations are ongoing. Whether we get an early deal or not, I don't know. If we can get a deal done with them, if we don't, we'll just wait until February 24. But we've had conversations the last 30 days. I think both realize the potential of this conference. They want to be partners. We want to help. They want to help build our brands, and that's always been debatable. And we'll see whether or not we get an early extension or not. The thought is that one of the things, even if you may not get quite as much money with Fox and or ESPN, is those two networks and what they do for you as well by promoting you, which is also debatable. Have they done that enough outside of the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma?
No, they have not done building the brand out well. It's always they've fallen on their face a bunch of times. That's the key. When we had Bob Berta on the other day at the show, the key is building that message out so that people understand that there's more to the Big 12 than just the teams that are now leaving. It was, the story with, Texas and Oklahoma are down, so now everybody else has a chance. Well, everybody else always has a chance. They just need to play better in certain degrees, but they also
some of them have not had just a chance. They've taken advantage of that chance.
But they need to win some CFP titles. That's the thing that will shake it off the most. But the Big Ten's only won one. but that one title has gotten them so much more street cred that it's made this whole thing, which is kind of average as a league, seem much bigger than it is.
Yeah, I think there's certainly been some marketing issues here and there. CFP titles are really hard to win, and it would have been a lot better, for the folks departing. Yes, the schools in the Big 12 right now could certainly, hold up their end of the bargain. Few teams trying to do that this year. Baylor's knocked on the door, TCU's knocked on the door. Part of the missing national championships for this conference was, I don't know, the two big brands who are complaining about things not holding up their end of the bargain as far as the big brands go. Oklahoma, when was their last national title? Texas, when was theirs?
2005.
So we're talking, a pretty long time, over 20 years since Oklahoma won a title. And it's not their job to carry the water, and they did that for a long time. But I think as much of the marketing was, that was wrong was you're focusing on these two teams, and they're not actually playing at the level of, being the peak of conference, of college football either. Oklahoma very close on several occasions, but never quite getting over that hump when it came to the playoff or national title. So, I think the Big 12 is where it's at, in a good way because of Oklahoma, Texas, but also in a negative way because of them as well. And yeah, some of the blame falls on the rest of the conference as well. So, it's all very simple. Yeah, they're going to have lesser TV ratings moving forward because two big brands with big fan bases are not going to be watching nearly as often. And maybe some games don't sell out as much. But as far as a brand of football goes and being competitive and all those types of things, I think it's there for the taking if you're Brett Yormark. There's a lot to like about what could be in store and what you have at your disposal. So, I'm very curious of how they keep attacking this. I will say, though, on the TV talks and stuff, at this point, I'm just tuning that out. I mean, he's saying stuff, but he's not really saying anything. Them talking and all of that, that's notable, but I feel like we've kind of heard that 2 or 3 times already, and it's almost like if it gets too quiet, let's bring that up again. So if there's something to it, that's great, but I'm not going to hold my breath on them getting an early deal. I expect it'll probably, move along at a normal pace, and here in a couple years we'll be talking about that deal. Probably not anytime in the near future, though.
It would have been helpful if Oklahoma, in those 3 to 5 other opportunities, had actually knocked the door down, played for the national championship, and won against USC or LSU, or even a couple other times when they blew that lead against Georgia,
yeah.
Texas in 2009. But it would have been even more beneficial had Oklahoma State back in the early parts of the 2000s, 2010 decade, Baylor and TCU in 14 when that was a fiasco, or Baylor or Oklahoma State last year, had they had a chance to get in, and Oklahoma State might have had that opportunity had they not lost in the Big 12 championship game, but they also did not carry their end of the bargain as well. Maybe this year, who knows? When we come back, Baylor football coach Dave Aranda on the off week and West Virginia. This is 365 Sports and KWTX.
Central Texas Plumbing Solutions is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. We want to wish the Big 12 champion Bears great success this season. Sick 'em Bears.
Hi, I'm John Proctor with Home Place Interiors. Nothing compares to the quality of an area rug to finish your house. Come by and save 50% on all in-stock and special order rugs. Come by Home Place Interiors where quality is affordable.
For all your flooring needs, visit Home Place Interiors at 523 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Central Texas Plumbing Solutions is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. We want to wish the Big 12 champion Bears great success this season. Sick 'em Bears.
Catch up on the day's news with KWTX News 10.
There have been a couple of different times, even this year, when I had a chance to sit down with Baylor head coach Dave Aranda, when he has mentioned that there was something missing. Maybe in the Brigham Young game when he talked about how some of the young guys or those who were getting a chance to play that didn't play as much last year, where their eyes got a little bit wide. That's part of the lack of experience and under very intense situation in Provo with that great crowd and atmosphere. And then we've heard it again. We've really, as Craig mentioned, have heard this since February about this team growing up, this team being prepared for what they had in front of them, and on top of that, a bullseye on their back.
I think it's always better to have other people tell you if you're doing it or not, because I think the blind spots are real. I think for me, the complacency part is hard. It's hard to, I don't know. I think if you were to be a coach and you were to say my team is complacent, it sounds like a way negative thing. And I think despite all the best efforts of all of it, and I think probably bigger picture, need to find better efforts. But I think talking about what's real is way important. And I think there's an element of kind of a waking up, like here's the jersey number, here's the play, here's all of it. This is not what it is. I know you're better than this. I know that there's an edge to you. I know all of that, getting that back. And so that's been a big focus. And it's been, as far as when I look at me, I just see that with the staff. And I think this came up the other day. But I think whether it's the youth of the team or it's kind of feeling the complacency and all of it, it's to, as a coach, to use all that and use it. And when we're not hitting the mark either way, or we're not growing the way we think we should, or we're thinking we arrived when we haven't done anything, it's using those moments to teach. And not to weaponize, and to, because I think then you're in a thing and you create another thing. And so I think there's both sides of it, because I think players are going to want to see that, hey, I didn't, here's my perspective. Oh, there's a whole other perspective. Okay. And then that whole thing is easier to admit when it's being talked to by someone that you trust and knows that they care about you more as a person than a player. And then, but then I think for the coach, it's like all the anxiety and all the other things. You're not the only one that feels that, dude. Players feel that too. So it's not about just putting it off. It's about using it for good. And so, the best criticism of the bad is the practice of the better. And I think it takes some intentionality to do that. We're trying our best.
When you have a performance coming off Oklahoma State and then you have to go into a bye week, what's more beneficial? Going into a bye week where you're going, okay, thank God we have a break here after a tough loss, or do you want to go in with momentum off a win?
It's a really good question. I think when you go off with a loss, you really have to kind of sit in it, and I think it really makes you see kind of the parts and the places and the things that you would otherwise choose not to see. And so I think it's all good. And I think using it for the good is really the other big issue. And so I think taking the time to be in the moment and really see the ugly things and the things that need fixing, which is true everywhere, not just for us, but to really hone in on that, and then to correct it, to teach it, and to do it in a way that holds an integrity with the people you're working with, and builds them up as opposed to tear them down. That's a whole other. And so that's been us, this last couple days, and so I'm proud of how we've approached it.
When Dave Aranda has a chance to speak next, which will be after tonight's game against West Virginia, but a chance next week would be interesting because of what he prides himself, he doesn't pride himself, but one of the things that he does so well is kind of get the pulse of the people, the pulse of the person over player. And you wonder if he has been disappointed that perhaps he has misread them. a handful of times in the last few weeks.
Oh, I think that would be true. I think he would.
Maybe even more than a team that fumbles a couple of times.
Especially since he kind of prides himself on that. I mean, that's his whole thing is noticing what needs to be said in the right moment. He just talked about that, about using those moments to teach. So not finding that right away has got to be frustrating to a guy who is, more about the player than the person, and finding what's underneath the mistakes and all that, and getting into the minutia of that mentally. I think that probably does bother him quite a bit.
How long has Dave Aranda been a head coach?
Only 3 years.
3 years.
That's what we're seeing right now. Yeah. That's what we're seeing.
Part of the
he
deal, the
doesn't
growth.
know everything. He's not going to be perfect at, when it comes to everything. I think it's very clear this roster has some holes. And now I feel like I've certainly been a part of conversations that talked about those holes, and then we saw how they went about trying to fill those holes, and, they did what they thought was the best route. But I think you look up and, you do your best, but does that mean that it's going to be perfect just because you tried your best? No, you still sometimes can make mistakes. And I think that, if they were to sit down and be brutally honest and uncensored halfway through the season, you sit down and talk to them and be like, okay, in hindsight, the wide receiver group, or in hindsight, the offensive line, or in hindsight, the secondary, or in hindsight, whatever. Yeah, I think that there could be some conversations about where they might have erred, or where maybe they misstepped, or maybe what they could have done differently. And that's just part of the gig, and that's part of the deal. And going back to him alone, he obviously felt good about, what they had in so many ways. And, now he's probably realizing that, like, if we were to have those conversations, like I said, we would have probably done this differently or that differently. But guess what? They can't do that right now. They got to roll with what they got. So that person-to-player connection is going to become really important. It already was anyways, but I think in terms of their success or lack thereof, that's really going to be part of what can carry them either up or down the rest of this way are those connections. And hopefully that can overcome some of their other deficiencies. But, yeah, I just think he's a young coach who's still figuring it out, and I think he's learned a very valuable lesson this year, or perhaps many, that will, be able to, help him in the future.
When we come back, we'll go back to Morgantown, West Virginia, Baylor in West Virginia, just after 6 o'clock Central Time. And we will go back to Chris Williams at the stadium. I'm sure the sun, of course, is starting to set a little bit. His thoughts about as we near kickoff. Chris Williams of KWTX. This is Game Day Live on 365 Sports.
Game Day Live on News 10 is sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Advanced Pain Care, and Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
Hi, I'm Vic Fazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Fazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Fazell.
Come experience modern luxury living at Portico at Friars Creek in Temple. Enjoy our pet-friendly Tuscan and loft-style Texas-sized floor plans with desirable features like stainless steel appliances, vaulted ceilings, designer colors, expansive walk-in closets, washer and dryer connections, high-speed internet access, and so much more. You'll love our community amenities like a zero entry and our resort-style pool with an inviting outdoor cabana. Find your next home now at PorticoApartmentsTemple.com. Portico at Friars Creek in Temple, a Case & Associates property. Find Case, find home.
One thing I hear most often from my patients is they still have pain after back surgery. In fact, almost 50% of my patients have experienced failed back surgery.
I had a disc decompression, which actually didn't work. I didn't ever think I was going to feel better. Then I went to Advanced Pain Care. Now I feel better than I've ever felt before. When Advanced Pain Care says the pain stops here, they definitely mean it. I am thankful to Advanced Pain Care for getting me back to doing the things I love.
Call today for a same-day appointment. Locations across Texas. Advanced Pain Care, pain stops here.
We are back on Game Day Live. Baylor in West Virginia, the Big 12. One game is coming up, of course, tonight. Then there's the ones we mentioned this weekend, including that unbeaten showdown in Fort Worth at Amon Carter Stadium between TCU and Oklahoma State. But back to Chris Williams of KWTX from Morgantown, West Virginia. And Chris, again, you've been there now. As they get closer and closer to kickoff, has the view or the scenery and or the vibe changed?
I'm losing you a little bit there, Smokey. The vibe is just starting to fill up a little bit, getting more and more fans coming in here. But I'll tell you what, as that sun goes down, it has gotten chillier. We're here on the Baylor sideline. You can see they have a hand heater right here. You can come stand by. And then they brought out the heated bench. So you can see they're pumping gas in. And you can hang your helmet right on top here. Keep your helmet warm while you're out. And then the bench is heated too. So they're taking the precautions. It should get below 50 here. It was in the 90s when Roy Ogletree and I left Waco. So this is quite the difference for us and quite the difference for Baylor.
All right, Chris, early in the game, what do you need to see from Baylor that'll make you feel good about this team after the bye week?
I want to see them make JT Daniels, the West Virginia quarterback, uncomfortable. I think that if this Baylor defense can get pressure on the quarterback, can make really the best player on this West Virginia offense uncomfortable, it's just going to trickle down from there. We talked about earlier, West Virginia doesn't really have the star power at receiver, so they don't have guys who can make up for that. So if you can get JT Daniels uncomfortable, you're going to be in good shape as your defense. And, of course, the Baylor defense needs to stop the run. I think that's always the case. I'd also like to see the offense put up points. This West Virginia team can score, so the offense better come out and not be flat today.
Chris, speaking of flat, I mean, there has been at times a kind of stunning lack of energy for this team, kind of like, hey, do you realize that you're in, it's game time? And I think we saw that their last outing. You're there before the game every time, seeing those guys out in the field. As much as you can tell, do you sense like the proper energy levels as they're about to go to war here with the Mountaineers?
It is hard to tell. It's hard because Coach Aranda's even talked about it. Before those other games that they came out flat, they showed the signs of a team that was pumped up and ready to go, and he says he couldn't tell if that was artificial or if it was natural. So, I mean, they look ready. They're jogging out. Actually, we can see the quarterbacks coming out right now, Blake Shapen. The guys, they look pretty much like they have for all these games, and it's hard to read. I guess we'll get a good idea of that a few minutes in, and I think special teams is where that flatness can burn them the most if they do come out flat.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Power's a fantastic punter. The kicking game has been, well, he gave up the kick returns to Oklahoma State. That was a killer, not only the one long touchdown, but also one that followed that a little bit later on. Khalil Keith, he has been out. Dave Aranda kind of made it sound as if this could be a week that he's back. Any thoughts or sights of Khalil Keith in uniform tonight?
No sights just yet, but it's mostly the specialists that have come out. The O-line usually comes out a little bit later, unless they're like a long snapper or something in the specialist part of it. I think if they do have him back and if he's healthy, that is a huge get for this Baylor offense. I think Khalil Keith being out is kind of an underrated storyline this season. People haven't been talking about. That's a guy with experience and a good physical lineman in the trenches. So we're going to continue to keep an eye out. I haven't seen him just yet, unless, Roy, and you've noticed him come out. But I don't think he's out here. I think it's mostly punters, kickers, and kick returners so far, so we'll keep an eye out.
All right, have you leaned into the stands and asked a West Virginia fan about Neil Brown when you could put it on the air?
There was one. There was probably one that we could put on the air. He was a very kind gentleman. The rest, I mean, even basic questions, yeah, I couldn't put on the air with these West Virginia guys. Pretty funny, but I don't know. They just have no regard for the FCC, and we're the ones who get fined for it, so I guess why should they care?
That's exactly right. Hey, Chris, great job tonight in Morgantown. You and Royden, appreciate that. And, again, enjoy the game, cover the game, have post-game coverage on KWTX, and also be careful on the way back to Pittsburgh after the game is over.
Hey, guys, it's funny how moonshine that tastes like straight gasoline will make you not care about your language.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's going to be chilly, and so you want to warm up, right? If that's the option, that's the option you want to take.
Yeah, I don't think Khalil Keith's playing tonight. I mean, he was. If he is, that's great. But I mean, all Aranda really said Saturday was that he's getting back to individual drills. So I mean, I think that Paul can speak more to that, but I think there's still a bit of a gap to go from just easing back into individuals and then getting into, game mode. So
unless he was just fantastic and all that
right.
over this week of practice, I just don't see him getting into that. But I think it's great news for next week against Kansas.
Yeah.
I think it's
if he didn't have a setback this week.
Yeah, if he didn't have a setback this week, if he's doing fine, I think that's great. And they really do need him. He's got that edge. He has that edge. Just talking to Khalil Keith, you can tell dude's got that edge. But yeah, I think that there's a little bit of that I would push back on if he's there tonight. But if he is there tonight, it means he had a hell of a week of practice. So
Byers has played well at right tackle, but Khalil Keith was a part of that. And Byers had a lot of snaps last year, but Khalil Keith is someone who's going to be able to move the pile when and if he's back. And it appears as if that might be sooner, but not soon enough. When we come back, we'll give our predictions of the game tonight between Baylor and West Virginia on 365 Sports and KWTX, and also a few of the elite games this weekend. This is 365 Sports and KWTX TV.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Richard Carr and his team are standing by the Bears in all sports this coming season, but Richard Carr's passion for football started many years ago when he was a trainer for the football team. In addition to his alma mater, Richard Carr also loves selling quality cars and trucks to his Central Texas neighbors. Whether you want the unbeatable GMC Sierra truck loaded with luxury and strong and tough for the workday, or the performance and ride of a Cadillac or Buick SUV, Richard Carr has an amazing lineup of vehicles for you. Stop by for a test drive, contact them online, or call and say Sick'em and you're immediately a VIP at Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Find them at Highway 6 at the Imperial exit or at richardcarr.com.
At Richard Carr, we give you more. Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed and kids club, 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Game Day Live on Sick'em 365 Radio is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, 3 Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
All right, we're back for Game Day Live, the final segment. Baylor and West Virginia, just after 6 o'clock Central Time in Morgantown, is the game we've been leading you up to. And, of course, also in college football tonight, future Big 12 member UCF is at home against Temple. Here's a stat on offense for Baylor. Back in 2019, they converted on 42% of third downs. In 2020, it was a disaster, we know. They converted on 33% of their third downs. And then last year was about 41 or 2%. This year it's at almost 44%. So they are converting on third downs. They do go for it a lot on fourth down as well. The problem is they got to get the other team's offense off the field on third down conversions, because that has been where they've given up too many of conversions and allowed the other team to stay on the field. And a lot of times it's been in 3rd and 8, 9, 10, or 12, which you think that they would feast off of that.
Yeah, I think that this game is going to come down to me to which team's weakness is more glaring. I think I'm leaning towards West Virginia's secondary, which has been an unmitigated disaster for them so far this season. None of that's worked out. I think that means a good night for Blake Shapen. I picked it on the site. I picked it everywhere that they asked me, every West Virginia podcast. I'm saying 31-19 Baylor. I think that they can control the game that way. I don't think it's going to be one of those things that Baylor can just put some distance between themselves and West Virginia. It's going to be a little tougher than that. But I do think that in the later part of the fourth quarter, this is somewhat comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's now or never, really. As far as I'm concerned, when we're talking about, the expectations leading into this season, I mean, I'm fine talking about a team that's like 6-6 and that being the realistic, way to talk about them. And maybe that's how we start talking about them tomorrow. But, it's certainly not the way that it was presented in the offseason or leading into this season. So I think tonight we learn exactly what avenue to take with discussing Baylor football, in terms of the expectations the rest of this way and where to look, when talking about the end of the road and what they may be able to accomplish. So I have to believe that there's, some fire burning. I can't imagine that they haven't heard some of that talk or even felt some of that talk. And I have to believe that they're aware of, kind of where they are right now and how important this game is tonight. So I'm going to put my trust in this team to go out there and get a big win on the road in a place they've never been able to do that. And I do think it will be a tough battle. I do think they pull away late in the second half and eventually win by a couple of scores. But I think this is going to be a scrappy fight, but I'll take the Bears.
I don't want to see just guys jumping up and down that fake emotion because it is fake and that only lasts for so long. I want to see a team goes out and has a personality, has an identity. They had it last year. They haven't quite had it this year. Yes, their two losses are teams that were ranked in Oklahoma State and Brigham Young, but Baylor needs to go out and be who they have been or who they're supposed to be. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about a team scratching and clawing to try to get to a bowl game. And so tonight, as we always say, we'll have more evidence of who they are. Can they run the football and dictate that? Can they play defense and create turnovers? If they do that, they'll beat anybody. But tonight, it's West Virginia. It's on the road, and we know road games are hard. Thanks to so many different people who have been a part of today's show, including Paul, Jack, Craig, Emery, Levi, Garrett, Jacob, Josh, Darby, Chris, Barry Bass, Andrew Hamilton, all of you. This is Game Day Live on KWTX and 365 Sports.
Be able to smile and be healthy and improve their quality of life.
When I came in, I had no teeth from here back because the bridge came off.
We were able to use dental implants, commonly referred to as a smile in a day, and literally take out the bad teeth and put in the new permanent teeth all in one day.
It looks natural to me. I don't feel guarded now. I'm enjoying my teeth.
When it comes to accounting or financial services, choose a firm where it's about you. At Patillo, Brown & Hill, we empower our clients to thrive and grow with a strong professional partnership that gets to know you and your business. Our longevity is a product of our top-notch team of innovative thinkers, critical problem solvers, and dedicated partners who provide a clear and comprehensive plan for your financial achievement.